I found out my wife was cheating because she told her darkest fantasy at a party and forgot I was her husband. Throwaway account because my kids know my main and I'm not ready for that conversation yet. I'm a 46-year-old guy from Ohio, married for 20 years, 2 kids, mortgage, dog, the whole painfully normal American package. Or at least that's what I thought until one sentence cracked my life clean in half. Looking back, the signs were there. They always are, right? Emily started working late, again after years of a stable schedule. She guarded her phone like it was classified government property. New lingerie showed up that I never saw used. And somehow, despite all that, I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Because when you've been married that long, you don't suspect betrayal, you suspect yourself. You tell yourself you're insecure, tired, getting old. Then came the party. It was a friend's birthday. Normal suburban house. Beer, wine, music from the early 2000s. Someone suggested truth or dare as a joke, because we're all allegedly adults. Emily was already drunk, way drunker than she usually lets herself get around me. She chose truth. People laughed. Someone asked a harmless question. Then it was my turn. I don't even know why I asked what I asked. Maybe instinct. Maybe my gut had been screaming and I finally listened. What's your darkest fantasy? I said, half smiling. She laughed too loud, hesitated too long. Everyone leaned in. Oh my God, no, she said. I can't say that. Everyone started chanting. You know how it goes. Peer pressure, alcohol, stupid games. She leaned toward me. Her hand was shaking. And instead of whispering something playful or embarrassing, she said something that made my stomach drop so hard I thought I might throw up on the spot. It wasn't a fantasy. It was a confession, wrapped in a joke, soaked in alcohol, delivered with the confidence of someone who believed I'd never connect the dots. I don't want to repeat her exact words yet. I'm still not sure I can type them without my hands shaking. But what matters is this. She described something specific, ongoing, planned, something that required lies, coordination, and time. A second life. And when she finished, she laughed. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I stood up. I told the host I wasn't feeling well. I walked out. Emily didn't follow me. Didn't text. Didn't call. That alone told me more than anything she said at that party. I packed a bag that night. Left the house before she got home. Stayed at a motel off the interstate like some cliché midlife crisis guy, staring at the ceiling and replaying that whisper over and over. I thought that was rock bottom. I was wrong. Because a week later, my daughter called me from college, crying, and said, Dad, I need to tell you something. Mom made me promise not to, but I can't do this anymore. And that's when I realized the betrayal didn't start, or end, with Emily. It infected my entire family. My daughter's name is Lauren. She's 20, smart, quiet, always been more observant than people give her credit for. When she called me that night, her voice didn't sound like a kid asking for advice. It sounded like someone confessing to a crime she didn't commit. Dad, please don't hang up, she said. I know this is going to hurt you. That sentence alone told me everything was about to get worse. I was sitting on the edge of the motel bed, shoes still on, staring at the ugly carpet pattern like it might anchor me to reality. I told her I wasn't going anywhere. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing. Then she said it. She's been cheating on you for over a year. Not weeks. Not months. A year. I felt this strange pressure behind my eyes, like my body wanted to cry, but my brain shut that option down completely. Lauren kept talking, words tumbling over each other now that the seal was broken. She told me last summer. She said it was complicated, that you wouldn't understand. She made me swear not to tell you because it would destroy the family. I remember laughing, not because it was funny, but because it was insane. My wife had turned our daughter into her emotional accomplice and had the nerve to call it protecting the family. Lauren told me how she'd seen the messages, how Emily never bothered to hide them when she thought no one was watching, how she'd take calls in the garage, how she'd leave the house dressed one way and come back dressed another. Then Lauren said the part that still makes my hands clench when I think about it. She talked about you like you were already gone, like you were just someone paying bills. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Do you know who he is? Another pause. Yes. His name was Jason. Of course it was. Jason wasn't some random coworker or gym guy. He was a friend. Not my best friend, but close enough. Someone who'd been in my house. Someone who'd had beers with me on the back deck. Someone whose kids had slept over. Someone who looked me in the eye and asked how my job was going while screwing my wife behind my back. Lauren told me she'd overheard Emily on speakerphone once, laughing with him about how clueless I was, about how I trusted too easily, about how I was safe. Safe. That word hit harder than any insult. After we hung up, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't punch walls. I did something worse. I started thinking clearly. I went back to the house the next morning while Emily was at work. She didn't change her passwords, didn't lock her laptop, didn't expect me to stop trusting her, because she never expected me to suspect her at all. Everything was there. Emails, photos, hotel reservations, shared calendars, a folder literally labeled trips, like she was planning vacations instead of an affair. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because here's the thing no one tells you. Once you know the truth, you have time. And time is dangerous, but it's also powerful. And Emily had no idea I'd stopped being the clueless husband she'd been lying to for a year. She thought she still had control. She was wrong. I stayed quiet for 3 weeks. Not because I was confused, not because I needed space, but because I needed leverage. I moved back into the house like nothing had happened. Same routine, same small talk, same fake kisses on the cheek. Emily didn't ask where I'd gone after the party. She didn't apologize. She didn't even look nervous. That told me something important. In her version of reality, I wasn't a threat. I was a fixture, a couch, a paycheck. And Jason? He was still very much in the picture. I could see it in the way she smiled at her phone. The way she suddenly had yoga twice a week, even though she'd mocked yoga for 20 years. The way she showered immediately after coming home. I started documenting everything. Screenshots, dates, times, locations. I synced her cloud backups to my own drive. I saved hotel invoices. I printed emails. I didn't snoop like a jealous husband. I collected like an accountant preparing an audit. One night, I tested her. I told her I might be laid off. Just floated it casually over dinner. Her reaction was instant. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask what we'd do. She asked, how bad would that be for us? Not for you. For us. That's when I realized she'd already planned a life where I was optional. A few days later, I followed her. I felt ridiculous doing it, like some bad movie cliché, but instinct overruled pride. She said she was meeting friends after work. I watched her drive straight past the restaurant she mentioned and onto the highway. She parked at a mid-range hotel near the airport. Not fancy, not cheap, discreet. Jason was already there. I didn't storm in. I didn't take pictures of them together. I sat in my car and watched them laugh in the parking lot like teenagers. Watched him touch her lower back. Watched her lean into him without hesitation. 20 years of marriage, reduced to body language. That night, she came home late and kissed me like nothing happened. I almost told her then. Almost asked how her girl's night was. Almost begged her to just tell the truth so I wouldn't have to keep pretending. But then I remembered Lauren's voice. The way Emily laughed about me being safe. And something inside me hardened. A week later, Emily made a mistake. She got careless. She told Jason she wanted more. I read the message in real time because her iPad was still synced to her phone. She wanted him to leave his wife. She wanted to do this for real. She wanted to keep me around until things were settled. That's when it stopped being about betrayal. That's when it became about strategy. Because I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was an obstacle she was planning to remove. And I don't lose quietly. The first thing I did was talk to a lawyer. Not one of those billboard guys who promise to fight for you. I wanted someone cold, methodical, someone who treated divorce like surgery, not therapy. His name was Mark Reynolds, and he didn't flinch once while I laid everything out. He didn't ask how I felt. He asked what I could prove. That's when I knew I'd picked the right guy. Mark told me something that stuck. Divorce isn't about who's right. It's about who's prepared. So I prepared. I opened a new bank account. Moved exactly half of what was legally mine. Nothing shady, nothing aggressive. I changed passwords. Froze my credit. Updated beneficiaries. Quiet, boring steps that felt nothing like revenge and everything like survival. Meanwhile, Emily was getting sloppy. She started treating me like an inconvenience. Snapping when I asked normal questions. Rolling her eyes when I mentioned family stuff. She was mentally gone, and she didn't bother hiding it anymore. One night, she accused me of being distant. You've changed, she said. You're cold. You don't talk anymore. I almost laughed. Instead, I asked her if she was happy. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I don't know. I just feel like I've outgrown this marriage. Outgrown. 20 years reduced to a phase. I nodded like a man processing feedback at work. Calm. Neutral. Safe. Behind that calm, I was building something. The next move was risky, but necessary. I contacted Jason's wife. Her name was Melissa. I didn't dump everything on her at once. I sent a short message. Polite. Direct. I said I had information that affected her marriage and that she deserved the truth. She responded 2 hours later. I think I already know. That sentence told me Jason wasn't as careful at home as he thought. We met at a coffee shop across town. No dramatics. No shouting. Just two people who looked 10 years older than they were. I showed her the evidence. She didn't cry. She just nodded and said, "So that's why he suddenly wanted a fresh start." Apparently, Emily wasn't the only woman Jason had been lying to. Melissa told me she'd already talked to a lawyer, that she'd been waiting for confirmation, that she was done protecting him. We made a quiet agreement, not for revenge, but for truth. No warnings. No ultimatums. Let them keep lying. Because lies collapse best when no one props them up. That night, Emily told me she'd be going on a work trip the following weekend. I smiled and told her to be safe. And in my head, I marked the date. Because everything was about to come out. Not in a screaming match, but in a way she could never twist or escape. The work trip was to Denver. She told me that casually over breakfast, scrolling her phone like she wasn't detonating the last illusion of our marriage. She even complained about airport security and bad hotel coffee. The audacity was almost impressive. I nodded, told her I hoped the meetings went well. The moment she left for the airport, I moved. Not dramatically, not emotionally. Precisely. First, I forwarded everything. Every email, every receipt, every message, to my lawyer. Then I did something that felt surreal even as I was doing it. I packed up my personal things. Just mine. Clothes. Documents. Photos that still meant something. I left the rest untouched, like a museum exhibit of a life that had already ended. Then I drove to Mark Reynolds' office and signed the papers. He slid them across the desk and said, "Once you file, the tone of everything changes." I said good. By noon, the divorce was officially in motion. That afternoon, I met Melissa again. She timed it perfectly. Jason thought his wife was visiting her sister that weekend. He had no idea Melissa had already booked a room at the same hotel Emily and Jason were staying at. Different floor, different wing. She didn't plan to confront him. She planned to watch him bury himself. Friday night, Emily texted me from Denver. "Miss you. Long day. Going to sleep early." I watched the timestamp. Then, thanks to the hotel Wi-Fi receipt synced to her email, I watched her log into the same network Jason had used 15 minutes earlier. I didn't reply. Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was Emily. I let it ring. Then ring again. Then a third time. When I finally picked up, her voice was tight and brittle. "Why didn't you answer?" she snapped. I asked her how Denver was. There was a pause. A recalibration. "It's fine," she said. "Listen, are you home?" That's when I knew something had gone wrong. What she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that Melissa had already met with hotel management. Already confirmed the room change Jason made under Emily's name. Already taken photos. Already emailed her lawyer. By the time Emily was standing in that hotel room, realizing she wasn't alone in the lie anymore, the fallout was already in motion. Jason's phone was blowing up. Emily's fantasy was collapsing. And I was sitting in my car, parked outside my own house, realizing something strange. I didn't feel rage. I felt relief. Because the truth was no longer something I carried alone. And for the first time in over a year, Emily wasn't in control of the story. Emily came home Sunday night. Not late. Not early. Just carefully. Like someone returning to a house after a fire, unsure what's still standing. I was already there, sitting at the kitchen table. No TV. No phone. Just a manila folder in front of me and a glass of water. I didn't look angry. I didn't look sad. That scared her more than anything. She froze when she saw me. "Oh," she said. "You're home." I nodded. "You too." She put her bag down slowly. Too slowly. Her eyes flicked to the folder, then back to my face. For a split second, she tried the old version of herself, the confused wife. "What's going on?" she asked. "You're acting really weird." I slid the folder across the table. "Before you say anything," I said calmly, "I want you to know I already know how this conversation ends. So don't waste time lying." She laughed. A sharp, defensive sound. Are you serious right now? She said. You're doing this because I went on a work trip? I opened the folder. Hotel invoices. Printed emails. Photos. A timeline. I watched her confidence drain page by page. Her face went pale, then red, then blank. This isn't what it looks like, she said automatically. I leaned back in my chair. That's impressive. You said that without even looking at the evidence. She swallowed. Then came the pivot. You invaded my privacy, she snapped. You're controlling. This is exactly why I felt trapped. There it was. Not remorse. Not guilt. Blame. I let her talk. I let her spin. She said she felt lonely. Unseen. That it just happened. That Jason understood her in ways I never tried to. I asked her one question. Did you make Lauren promise not to tell me? Her mouth opened. Closed. Silence. That was the moment she lost whatever ground she thought she had. You involved our daughter, I said quietly. You turned her into your shield. She started crying then. Real tears. Or maybe just better acting. It was hard to tell after everything I'd learned. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said. I just wanted to be happy. I stood up. Happiness doesn't require deceit, I said. It requires honesty. You chose the opposite. I told her I'd filed for divorce, that the papers would be served in the morning, that I'd already moved half the money legally, that my lawyer would be contacting hers. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. You can't just do this, she said. After everything we've built. I looked around the kitchen. The photos. The magnets on the fridge. 20 years of shared space. You dismantled it quietly, I said. I'm just acknowledging the damage. She asked about Jason. I told her to ask Melissa. That's when she broke. Not because she lost me, but because she lost the fantasy. And for the first time since this began, I slept through the night. The fallout was fast and ugly. By Tuesday morning, Emily had been served. By Tuesday afternoon, Jason had moved out of his house. By Wednesday, the illusion they'd built together was rubble, and both of them were scrambling to rewrite the story in whatever way made them look less monstrous. Emily tried first. She called, texted, left voicemails that bounced between anger and panic. You're being dramatic. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're really going to throw away 20 years over a mistake? A mistake. A year-long affair. Hundreds of lies. Using our daughter as a human firewall. I didn't respond. Then she switched tactics. She showed up at my office. I saw her through the glass wall before she saw me. Hair done. Makeup perfect. Wearing the blazer she always used when she wanted to look composed and reasonable. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. Emily smiled like she belonged there. I walked out, closed the door behind me, and didn't invite her in. This isn't the place, I said. She dropped the smile instantly. So you're just going to humiliate me now? She snapped. You're enjoying this. I shook my head. I'm protecting myself. She crossed her arms. Jason told me Melissa is turning everyone against us. She's poisoning the narrative. I almost laughed at the irony. Jason told you a lot of things, I said. How's that working out? That hit. Her voice dropped. He's not answering my calls. There it was. The real fear. Not losing her marriage. Losing her backup plan. I told her I wasn't interested in mediating her regret. That all communication would go through lawyers from now on. That if she showed up unannounced again, I'd consider it harassment. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. You're not the man I married, she said. I met her eyes. You're right. That man trusted you. That night, Lauren came home from college. She looked exhausted. Older. Like someone who'd been carrying weight she was never meant to bear. She apologized to me before I could say anything. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner, she said. She made me feel like it was my fault if everything fell apart. I hugged her. For a long time. I told her the truth, that the only person responsible for this was her mother. That silence under pressure isn't betrayal, it's survival. Emily didn't come home that night. I didn't ask where she went. Because by then, I finally understood something crucial. She wasn't losing me. She had already lost herself. And all that was left was the legal, emotional, and financial reckoning she'd spent a year pretending would never come. The divorce stopped being theoretical the moment money got involved. Emily's lawyer came out swinging. Allegations, emotional language, vague suggestions that I'd been emotionally unavailable, and that my behavior after the party had been intimidating. It was textbook misdirection. When the facts are ugly, you attack tone. Mark shut it down in 10 minutes. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't moralize. He laid out the timeline, the evidence, the financial transfers, the hotel receipts, the messages where Emily explicitly talked about keeping me around until she and Jason figured things out. Then he slid one document across the table, a sworn statement from Lauren. Emily hadn't expected that. She went rigid when she saw our daughter's name at the top of the page. Her lawyer tried to object. Mark calmly reminded him that coercing a child, even an adult one, into silence about an affair was relevant, admissible, and deeply damaging. For the first time since this started, Emily looked small, not remorseful, cornered. After that meeting, her tone changed. She stopped posturing and started pleading, quietly, selectively. Emails about being reasonable, about remembering the kids, about how she didn't want things to get ugly. They already were. Jason tried reaching out to me next. One message. That's all it took to tell me everything I needed to know. Man to man, this got out of hand. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it without responding. Melissa, on the other hand, kept me updated, not out of alliance, but because the truth had momentum now. Jason had begged her to reconsider. Promised therapy. Promised transparency. Promised to cut contact with Emily. Too late. He'd already shown her who he was when he thought no one was watching. By mid-month, Emily had moved into a short-term rental. The house was quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar, but not lonely. I started sleeping better, eating better, thinking clearer. One evening, I found myself laughing with Lauren over takeout on the living room floor, and it hit me hard. This wasn't destruction. This was extraction. Removing something toxic hurts, but the pain isn't the same as loss. It's pressure leaving the system. Emily still thought she could negotiate her way back into a version of life where she didn't pay full price. She was wrong, because the final accounting, financial, emotional, and reputational, hadn't even begun yet. And once it did, there would be no rewriting the record. The last week of the divorce process was surreal. Emily tried everything, calls, texts, even showing up at my lawyer's office under the pretense of mediation. I didn't answer. Lauren handled most of her messages for me, filtering out the gaslighting and the guilt trips. I let her. She deserved to see the truth in action. Her desperation was almost pathetic. She still wore the same confidence, but it had cracks. I could see them in the small details, the hesitation in her voice, the shaking of her hands when signing documents, the way she avoided looking at me directly in court. Every attempt to manipulate or charm me fell flat. Because this time, I wasn't a fool. I had proof. I had control. I had clarity. Jason tried calling me one last time, begging me to intervene, to make her stop. I didn't respond. Melissa had already cut him off. He was left staring at the wreckage of his own choices, just like Emily. The court finalized everything on a Friday. No drawn-out hearings. No dramatic confrontations. Just the facts, the evidence, and two lawyers who knew exactly what was happening. Emily got the house for a while, mainly because the kids were still adjusting, but all financial leverage was gone. Everything she had counted on me ignoring, everything she assumed I'd never notice, was stripped away quietly, efficiently. I left the courthouse and went straight to Lauren. She hugged me so tightly it felt like all the tension of the last year was being squeezed out of me. "Dad," she whispered, "you did the right thing." I didn't respond immediately. There was nothing to say. The lesson had been taught through action, not words. Later that night, I sat alone in the living room. The house felt lighter, almost like it was exhaling. The betrayal, the lies, the secret life Emily built, all of it was gone from my responsibility. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need drama. The truth had been enough. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that being calm, patient, and strategic had not only preserved my dignity, it had restored it. Emily's chapter in my life was over. Jason's, too. But Lauren and I, we were just getting started. A month later, the house felt like mine again, not because it was empty, but because it was honest. No more secrets behind the walls. No more whispers in the middle of the night. No more pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. Emily moved out permanently, taking nothing but her carefully curated lies. Jason was completely out of both of our lives. And me? I started to rebuild. Not the marriage, not that illusion, but myself. I started small. I repainted the living room. Bought a new coffee maker. Took Lauren out for breakfast every Saturday. We started talking more honestly than ever before, about everything. college, friends, life, even the betrayal. She was old enough to understand now, strong enough to see clearly, and smart enough not to carry the weight of someone else's deception. I even laughed again. Not loudly, not forced, but the kind of laugh that comes when the tension finally releases after months of pain. And the lesson? The lesson I want anyone going through something similar to hear. Betrayal is brutal, but how you respond defines who you are. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to burn everything to the ground. Sometimes, the cold, calculated truth, the careful extraction of lies, and the reclamation of your own life, that's the ultimate power. I learned to trust my instincts again. I learned that silence can be more powerful than confrontation. And I learned that some people will lie, manipulate, and try to make you doubt yourself, but they cannot take what you protect and prove. Emily thought she was untouchable. She thought she could have it all. She couldn't. Jason thought he was clever. He wasn't. And me? I'm still standing. Clear, honest, stronger than I've been in years.